Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
Well, we have so much to talk about. Dean Webb came in, and of course, you know, Dean Webb's been on our show so many times, and he is the CEO and he's the everything that I know anyway from Faith Farm. He's the everything. My husband just named me vice president of everything. That's a very
that's a good title for you. Chief operating officer, everything.
Everything, right? Every time I say so, okay, vice president. All right. Anyway, the point is that there's so many good things happening with Faith Farm. I mean, here it is. This is a program with a lot of sadness when people first come in, and then the joy when they're leaving and when they're in the program. So I thought we were going to talk about the graduation, which I was overwhelmed with. But now I think I'm going to put that aside for a minute to talk about the great news that you have just heard.
Yeah, I came in so excited. Lester Holt, NBC Nightly News, his staff, his director, Victor, left word while I was out at lunch appointment last Friday. And before I could call him back, of course, they move so fast, they'd already called Richard, my director on the Fort Lauderdale campus, trying to reach him because it seems that they'd done a special thing on his show, a little segment called Hooked. It won the Emmy Award for the best story within a regular news broadcast.
That's big.
So that was 2 years ago, and this kid that they did the story on was in St. Louis, and I went to YouTube and looked at him. I mean, he's unrecognizable now compared to what the story and what I saw on YouTube from the Emmy Awards. But anyway, they called his mother. They said, we got to do a follow-up from our 2-year-old story. We won an Emmy Award for that, but what's going on with your son? Oh, you won't believe it. He is in a recovery program in Florida, and he is doing so well. He has graduated their program. It's called Faith Farm. And he is now in the Omega School program. He's living on campus, going to school every day. And she said his life has totally changed. He was hooked on heroin for over 10 years. And so they're coming back in the morning on campus to do the follow-up story to that Emmy award-winning Emmy show that they did on him called Hooked. And so I'm really excited. I emailed Victor, the director for Lou Holt,
For the program.
Yeah. Vic, I'm flustered. I'm so excited.
I know
my heart's
you
pounding
are.
so much. I'm so sorry.
It's so wonderful to hear you like this.
Anyway, I emailed him and I said, the amazing thing is, in the last 5 years, Faith Farm has drawn from 49 out of 50 states people to come in our program, Puerto Rico, India, South America, literally all over the world, really, in the country. But yet people here locally in Palm Beach County and Broward County have no idea the gem that they're holding here called Faith Farm and how it's just transforming lives all over the world on a permanent basis. And yet most of the world, I emailed him and I said, Victor, most people find us that are desperate for help. They go on the internet and they'll find Faith Farm. Free is one of the key words in our search engine. But because it's a free 9-month program, and they'll find us. But unfortunately, the people that all around us at those campuses, I constantly have them say, you have a great thrift store. I shop there. But no, I don't know what you do. I have no idea.
That's why we do this radio show, and that's why we do as much as we can, because you are so right. But the other part of this is now the phones are going to ring off the wall once that's shown, and you don't have enough space. So how can we also get donations into that little thing they're going to do? Okay, everybody, now if you just donate, we could have more beds.
Well, we have all set up on our website, literally. If you hit the How to Give button, it drops down. You can gift. We have a way to gift wire order transfers, credit card, gifts of stock, assets. I mean, you can give any numerous ways. And of course, we had a miraculous gift from a listener on this show a couple years ago when our bridge was condemned, and we had $1,000,001 cost to build a bridge and had no money to do that because we hadn't budgeted for that. So radio listeners, if God moves on them to help us, I always say this when I'm in front of somebody, I said, giving to Faith Farm is really a safe bet. We've been in October is our anniversary. We've been doing this for 65 years. We're the only nonprofit that is self-sustaining, and by that I mean our micro business enterprises fund our day-to-day expense. We just don't have the cash gifts which we need to build extra dorm space or buy more trucks to pick up more free stuff to give and sell to fund ourselves. So it's just it's the solid base is there. So anything that's given is not sucked up in operating expenses or paperwork or whatever. It goes to add something to Faith Farm.
And it also, the big thing is that once someone has the opportunity to go to either one of the graduations, and that's a must. I've told someone I'm just now referring to you who we'll talk about that after because I don't think we should talk about it till everything is set with it. But if they go and they see a graduation, if they just walk through, their mouth will be open because you're absolutely right. And, of course, the big thing is that you are spreading the word of how you do it all over the country. That's the most important thing.
Well, thanks to radio programs like this, I get a chance to tell. I had an architect from Palm Beach email me the other day, and I just heard you on whatever 90-something point something, I don't remember, because I'd done a radio syndicate that had like 10 stations or something, and he heard me on one of those, and he says, boy, that is really powerful. He said, that really made an impact on me on what you do. And so when you have me on this show, the listeners, it helps inform them about Faith Farm and what we do.
And especially since we put you on YouTube. You have a lot of hits on YouTube.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah, because I keep watching.
I didn't check that.
Yeah, I keep watching. But the biggest thing is that the people, the human beings, and maybe we ought to touch on the graduation. I do get to go to them every once in a while, and I come back so inspired. One thing that I love about it is that the parents who have really suffered, the family members, if there are any left of that particular person, sometimes they give up on them and sometimes they don't. And that's the big word. Don't give up on us.
Absolutely.
And so when I see their faces and they're so happy and tears are flowing, and a lot of these are grown men, that's really, and I know you're always there with a tissue because it affects you also.
Oh, yeah.
And it's how many graduations do you have a year?
We have 3 farms, and each farm has a graduation every 6 weeks. So 3 out of 6 weeks, we have a graduation. And our classes, we have 6 classes, 6 weeks long each. We have orientation, then class 1 through 6 weeks each. And that's why we're on a cycle of 6 weeks of graduation. And we have it staggered, so Boynton Beach is the first one in the cycle, then Fort Lauderdale, then Okeechobee. That way I can attend all 3 of them.
So talk about what a graduation really is. I know, but why don't you share it?
Well, we ask the students to write out a 5-minute speech on their life change. And they start with usually they'll give their name, rank, and serial number and date of birth. They give where they were born into a family and where they were born and the date. And then they start off in their life story. Usually it's the causes of addiction. What got them in? Sometimes it's a trauma. A mother or father died suddenly and they were just devastated. Sometimes it's a divorce. And, if you know psychologically, a lot of kids blame themselves for a divorce. They think they did something wrong, to help create that, and they didn't. But whatever the cause is, it's devastating, and sometimes it's not a dramatic event. Sometimes it's simply
the wrong crowd,
peer pressure. They go off into high school or college, and everybody's cool doing the smoking the weed and all that stuff, so they get into it, and it starts. I think marijuana is the gateway drug, in my opinion, because everybody seems to start there and then want something more and more and more. And so they eventually get hooked on something. And the sad thing is most people, before they start drinking or doing drugs, especially drinking, they don't know if they have that gene that causes them to be addicted and become an alcoholic. So abstinence is the safest way to avoid that. Self-discipline is the backup to that. But if you've got that, it's very difficult. So once you're hooked on something, it's really hard to get off. It's really hard to get off. So they tell the story about what got them into their addiction, and a lot of times they'll tell their prison record or their arrest record or DUI record or whatever, and what caused them to hit bottom. And it's usually they're laying in a hospital and somebody tells them about Faith Farm, or they're sitting in jail and somebody in the next cell will say, "Hey, dude, you need to try. There's a place I've heard about called Faith Farm." Sometimes it's we have a guy named Mark Swallow who lives. His whole life ministry is traversing the state of Florida, going into prisons and trying to feel out if a guy really wants to change, and he'll go before a judge as an advocate and get him released to Faith Farm to change his life.
It's great.
And people, nobody knows of it. It's called the Cave of Abdullah, which is a biblical thing in the Old Testament. But anyway, that's the name of his ministry, and people donate that to buy his gas and keep him going to rescue these people out of prison. So a lot of times our most motivated people are people that come from prison or jail.
Well, what I've been impressed, I'm impressed with all that. But then you see these beautiful women sitting up there, young, a little bit middle-aged, even a little bit older. And what they have been put through, it is hard to even believe that it must take a lot for them to stand up and tell them how they have been a prostitute or the kind of drugs or where they've been and they didn't care about anything and they were used. And then to come there and they're all they're changed, but they have to first say that so that people can understand, and they probably will never forget what their life was like. But it's too painful. Yeah, right. But yet they are on the road to recovery.
Uh-huh. And we have a volunteer, Dr. Gail Neer. She's a very brilliant lady. She will screen the testimonies for the women and find out if if a lot of them have young children that their mothers or grandmothers have kept while they were in the program. And so that she will find out which of the family members are coming. And sometimes she'll have them tone down the prostitute stuff and just maybe mention, not be graphic in any way, or maybe not mention that, just not to offend their parents, and they'll skip around that and dance around that word wise because they don't want to be offensive. They don't want to offend their mom or their family, or especially if they've got young girls or children.
Sure.
So they will have them skip some of their stuff. So if they didn't skip it, it'd be a lot hair raising than you've heard.
I'm sure. But and then the other thing I wanted to point out is the camaraderie. Sometimes, and I feel this more with the men, sometimes the men just are almost mute. That's hard for them to carry on, and they're crying, and the guys get up and they come on, go and do it. I love to see that.
It's like the old, being a military guy, I call them foxhole buddies. Guys that have gone through war in the foxhole, they don't know, some guy from Jersey, some guy from Florida, some guy from Oklahoma, whatever, and they've all been fighting together. When they make it through the battle and they get they stay in touch, and they'll have reunions, these military reunions, and they're really, really powerful because these foxhole buddies have risked their lives together. Their lives have been saved together. They may have saved each other skin in the battle, and it's a deep, deep thing. Well, it's the same way at Faith Farm. These people are battle scarred from drugs and alcohol. They've been devastated, but they've had the courage somewhere through somebody encourage them, or maybe they hit rock bottom. They pull themselves up to check themselves into a faith-based program to transform their lives. And so it's really neat to hear the testimonies at graduation. You can go on our website, and it's got the whole graduation schedule. We do it for a year in advance.
And you always invite outside people.
Absolutely. I want to. I wrote the book, You Turn to God, that's got 50 graduation testimony or speeches in it. And I did that because I'm always inviting people just to come one time. All you got to do is come one time and hear these stories, and you know exactly what we're about. But not everybody can do that. It's at 10 in the morning. Some people go to their own church or synagogue or mass or whatever, and they have their own thing on Sunday morning, and we substitute the Sunday morning service at 10 o'clock and substitute that for graduation every 6 weeks. So a lot of people have their own commitment. And so I wrote that book. If they can't come to graduation, I was trying to take graduation to them. And
And you did that. The book is very powerful, and I know people love it, and you try to get it out as much as you can. What does someone have to do who's listening that wants to get the book?
They can go online. Either they can go to Amazon.com. It's called U-Turn. Got a big U-Turn to God. Or they can go on our website, faithfarm.org, and you'll see the book there. You can click on it, and that goes to a link we have with CreateSpace, which gives you a $5 discount, which will probably cover your shipping charges. And, of course, Amazon, if you go over $49, I think it is, it's free anyway if you add other stuff. But if you only want to have that book, you can get that, and it'll cost, you don't have to burn gas to drive. You just click, you save $5, and which will pay for the postage.
And I was thinking of parents who are listening and know that their adult children, these could be grandparents, whomever, are in trouble, and nothing they say will help them. But all you have to do is buy the book, just leave it on the table, leave it somewhere. Once they get through that, they may then, without your urging, do something about it themselves, because these are pretty strong stories.
Yeah.
And the people, as you've always said, some of them come from backgrounds which maybe people were poor, but then some come from very strong backgrounds. In fact, I'm always impressed, the women especially, when they say, I was brought up in a wonderful home, I had a good mother and father, I had this, I was graduating, and somehow the peer pressure, whatever happened. Yeah. So it's because it does affect everyone, as you said also so well, that some people can have a drink, have 1 or 2 or even 3 drinks a day if that's what they desire, but they don't have the gene. So if they're not, if they're not just attuned to just doing that to forget everything, they don't have a problem. But once someone has that gene, because I think you mentioned or someone mentioned that they maybe went for years without drinking, they had already, they were not addicted anymore, and they had 1 drink. They said, oh, I'm so good, I can have a drink.
Yeah, and they got hooked. I was watching last night an interview with Donald Trump, and they were asking about his most traumatic experience in his life. And he says, it's when my brother died.
His brother did die from something.
Yeah, and he says, from alcohol. He said, but I'll never forget what he told me. He said, Donald, don't ever take the first drink. Don't ever drink. And he said that every time he was with me. And I said, well, he said, I never forgot that. I said, alcohol's never passed my lips in any form. He said, because that was so strong for my brother who died from that.
You can imagine. I wonder if his father drank.
I don't have any idea.
No, because I find, my family, no one drank in my family, and my first husband didn't. So that's really something that I just wasn't involved with. They didn't smoke, they didn't drink, and so it was not in the house.
Right, yeah. It's if you don't take the first one, you can't ever get addicted and become an alcoholic. It's kind of like if you don't participate in sex, you don't have to worry about getting hooked into having a baby. Abstinence of everything is pretty strong in a lot of issues.
Right, but let's talk about your growing up. Of course, you grew up with a family that father was a minister, and sometimes people do drink even when they're doing that. But obviously, there wasn't that in your family. And sometimes the very strictness does turn people into the other. You know that.
Yeah, they rebel against it.
Yeah, it just depends what it is. But you were in the Navy.
Yep.
And you sure must have seen a lot of drinking.
Oh yeah. See, during Vietnam, they don't feel they have no concept if they're going to live through tomorrow. They'll come back from a mission, and they just feel, wow, I made it back, and they are reckless with drinking, sex, everything, because they don't feel like they're on borrowed time. They don't feel like tomorrow. I remember one time I was flying a navigator on big transports, and the crew made a thing as they would block off all the tires. If there are 8 crew members, they would section it in 8, and they put a number, and they give us a number. Well, when we got to our destination and we taxied in, the guy gave a cut. Everybody would get out and see whose number was on the bottom. Whoever's number on the bottom had to buy everybody drinks. Well, one time my number came up, and I said, I don't really do alcohol. I'll buy everybody a Coke. And the aircraft commander said, oh, no, this is alcohol. And I refused to do that, and he tried to get me court-martialed. He said,
this is a story
He said, this man disobeyed a direct order. And I said,
why didn't you? Oh, okay.
I said, okay, I will, I'll buy them as many Cokes as they want. But when somebody buys drinks, I always order a Coke. I don't drink. So I'm not going to buy them drinks. And so I disobeyed a direct order of the aircraft commander, and I went before the squadron CO, and because he was wanting me court-martialed for directing, and the guy says, I'm not going to override his personal beliefs. And I got out of it.
Oh, my goodness. This is a big story that we never heard.
Yep.
And, but how did the other people feel about you? They
didn't like it. They thought I was a goody two-shoes, and they'd make remarks. But, I didn't care. I'd spent my whole life going against the grain. I mean, everybody was going this way, and I seemed to always be going that way.
That was because of your parents' influence, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Very strong influence.
Interesting. Well, see, I just learned something new about you. That's quite a story.
When do you get my book, baby doll?
That's the next book?
The next one. I'm almost finished. You better do a book review.
Oh, of course you'll get a book review.
You're going to hear some curling stories.
Oh, my heavens. Well, that is a very interesting story. So that's one of the, that's a very story. Okay. So just getting back to it, but there was a lot of drinking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they would get snockered.
Of course, and I can understand. I can understand
They would
that.
pour themselves into bed totally inebriated in hopes that they would be sober enough to take the next flight the next day. And see, I was in a flight crew. I had 82 members in my pre-flight when I was going to get a commission in the Navy. At the end of 4 years, when I came back, over half of them were dead, had died. I mean, there was such a feeling of each day was a borrowed day, and there was no future. I mean, just, more than a day at a time. So there was no long-term thinking about whether I drank alcohol or impregnated somebody there was no long-term thinking. It was just live for today because tomorrow I'm probably going to be dead,
Well, that's another thing to put in there. No, so I was thinking, though, when they got out of the Navy, probably a lot of them then didn't drink like that anymore, didn't they?
Probably
what
not.
Do you
No,
think?
they were safe. They were they could then pursue their life's dreams, and they weren't going to be shot down tomorrow. And so they probably dramatically changed. I know a lot of them that came, that dramatically changed. It was just a short-term behavior based on a short-term situation.
Well, I think, talking just in a personal way, I don't know if you were told this, that Bill's first wife, who was a school teacher, was an alcoholic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And she absolutely, he couldn't handle it anymore because she was getting very violent. And she wouldn't stop drinking. One night when he woke, she had a knife in her hand, looked like she was going to, do something to him. So he divorced her, sent her back to her brother's, and it was in California, and she wound up dying in the street. Dying in the streets. Because she was an alcoholic. And he was a school teacher. So he had a real eye-opener on what alcoholism in a different way.
Oh, that's sad. That's horrible. I didn't know he experienced that.
Oh, yeah, he did. So that's.
So he must love you.
He loves me, but of course. But his ex-wife didn't drink like that either. But everybody seems to have a story, don't they? Because we've been covering alcohol, but you've been talking about, of course, the prescription drugs. And before we do that, I've got to tell everybody again, this wonderful guest that you will hear once a month, and if you just get online with the faithfarm.org, you'll see him. You'll hear a lot of his stories and what he does. But you can donate money. You can just do everything that they need, because as he said, Dean said, it's one of the few organizations that you see your money working immediately. It's not in a big pot. I mean, I love the Red Cross, but you really don't know what's happened. I mean, if you give blood or something, I have no idea. But I know that this is the wonderful organization here in Palm Beach County and Broward and Okeechobee.
Yep.
Right? Is that Okeechobee County?
Yeah.
It is.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So it's faithfarm.org. And this is, of course, Dean Webb. And we just admire him, and we admire all the people who are there. So if you have clothing you want to donate, you have furniture you want to donate, or you want to go and get things. One thing you told me too, and I must say, when people have fires, a lot of people who don't have a lot of money, you've made it available for them to come to Faith Farm and to literally pick up clothing or furniture, haven't you, at no cost?
Yes, absolutely.
And we never talk about that. That's
when they come,
paying it forward.
We've had there have been TV specials in Broward County from our Fort Lauderdale farm, for example, where somebody was burned out, had a fire, burned out an apartment, and the fire chief was going to put up. They took a collection to buy her rent, first month's rent, and get her an apartment for her and her 3 kids. And they contact us and says, "Okay, can you help us with furniture?" And we let her come through and pick out whatever she needed to furnish her apartment. Well, what we didn't know is the fire chief had Channel 5, the camera crew, come with them. So they're showing her, "No, I don't like it." "Oh, Mom, don't you like it?" "Yeah, I liked it." I mean, the next day, our phone. And they, at the end of the TV thing, they says, "And not only that, but Faith Farm delivered it to her apartment for free." Well, I mean, the next day, our phones rang off the hook. I want free furniture too. I mean, you can't. I mean, we sell the furniture to be able to fund the program. So from time to time, if somebody has a desperate need, but we're just not in a giveaway
decimated
mode.
As they were. I was thinking about the fire in Canada. Boy, I wish there were Faith Farms up there.
Oh yeah,
you know what's happening up there. Amazing.
People, I mean, they don't have nothing. They're burnt to the ground.
Totally. So are there going to be more Faith Farms all around the country? That's my big question.
I don't know. We get calls. People that come down. When I spoke at the AGRM convention in St. Louis last year, we've had 30 missions come to over the last year and a half to see how we do what we do, because they would like to have micro business enterprises also. But it's real difficult. Florida's a unique thing. I don't know if it'll work in other places. And I've looked at that. And the reason is this place is just full of second homes. Everybody from everywhere has a second home in Florida, it seems like. And they buy them and they furnish them. And when the condo heat was crazy, they would buy them. They call us to pick up, gut it. They donate everything. They fix it up. Then they come and buy it from us and redo it, sell it. And they were flipping condos. So we had people just flipping, selling and donating and then rebuying, and it was just crazy. So that volume has kind of died down. But right now, I will say any attorney or real estate agent who has a foreclosure or has some reason to have a house cleaned out, call us and we'll come freely and pick everything up and give you a tax receipt to boot.
Dean Webb, thank you very much as usual. Just call faithfarm.org and we'll talk to you next month.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.